Welcome back to Sunday Refresh. I'm Pastor Rob. It's a privilege to have you with us this morning. This last Sunday, we started 2 Corinthians. We focused on chapters 1 through 5, and Pastor Leo gave a great message. His title of his message is, Why is it so hard to let God love you? Too often we think too much broad scope about this or about that issue, about this issue. In 2 Corinthians chapter 1, Paul says, For we do not want you to be unaware, brothers, of the affliction we experienced in Asia. For we were so utterly burdened beyond our strength that we despaired of life itself. Indeed, we felt that we had received the sentence of death, but that was to make us rely not on ourselves, but on God. Too often we look at the situations that we're in our life and we try to fix them. We try to understand what God is doing instead of just relying upon God. The best place for me, and I know it sounds weird, but the best place for me to be is when I'm overwhelmed. Nobody really likes to be overwhelmed, but I know that when I'm overwhelmed, that it has nothing to do with me. That there's no way that I can get myself out of this situation. There's no way that I can do it in of my own strength and my own abilities and the things that I take stock in. But what it does do is it makes me rely upon God. It makes me look at this loving God who has so much to offer each and every one of us. This God who has so much to give us, to lead us, and to guide us. It takes my focus off of the craziness all around me, and it completely puts my focus onto God. I like to go back to the story in the Bible when the disciples are on the boat and Jesus is walking on the water to them. And at first they're startled because they think that they've seen a ghost, but then they realize that it's Jesus. And Peter, in all his zeal, yells out to Peter, Call out to me and I'll come. And so Jesus said to him, Come on. And at first light, Peter had the faith to believe that he could step out on that water and that he could walk over to Jesus. And as he got dressed and as he stepped out on that water, that first foot, it stepped on the water. And then as he took that second step, all of a sudden, what do we notice? He begins to see the storm around him. He begins to see the waves that are crashing in on him. And we all find ourselves in that situation in our life to where our circumstances in our life, they press in. And it's beyond what we can measure. It's beyond what anybody can imagine. But what happens in that? We begin to look at the situation and the storm around us. We begin to look at the waves that are crashing in on us, and we've taken our eyes off of Jesus. The minute that Peter took his eyes off of Jesus, he began to sink in the water. And too often we find ourselves sinking in the water that's around us. And yet it comes back to this simple question. Why? Why do we try so hard to not accept God's love? To not allow Him to put His arms around us and to lift us up and encourage us during those circumstances. See, God's promises is that He will allow us to experience peace. He doesn't promise that He's going to take the circumstances away from us, but what He does promise is that He will give us peace right in the middle of those circumstances. And so I hope you enjoy as we continue to read through the Bible systematically. Come out Wednesday night. We're going to be going through all 5 chapters, chapter 1 through chapter 5 of 2 Corinthians. Next week, we're going to continue on in another 4 chapters, and then the week after that, another 4 chapters. And so it's a great opportunity for us to come together and to grow and to know who Jesus is and to know how much God really loves us. And not only know it, but that we'll accept it. Thanks for joining us. Hope to see you next week.